So we start with the method reference. Any questions if anyone has one? Yeah. Okay. Fine. So method reference is used in some cases, can be used in some cases where we write a lambda expression. Mainly lambda expression which involves single method invocation. Okay. There is a lambda expression. What's the code for it? Oh, it's only doing one, invoking particular method, right? If that's the case, then there are cases where instead of writing a lambda expression, you may be able to use a method reference. Okay, and so let's try to understand how the method reference can be given. Okay, for which kind of lambda expressions it can be done. Okay. Okay, so to consider the various kinds of lambda expression, right? So it's based on basically the input parameters to the method. Okay, lambda expression is for some kind of a function. So there is some abstract method of an interface which is to be written. Okay, so fine. Let's consider a few lambda expressions, right? So I'll take a case where maybe we have got 3 input parameters. Okay, so consider a lambda expression like this. Okay, so for example, we have a lambda expression which says fine, you have something for, okay, I'm mentioning the types. Okay, I'm mentioning the types here. Let's say there is some class 1. Okay, that's your input A. There's a class 2, that's your input B. Let's say there's a class 3, that's the input C. Okay, and the lambda expression says I would like to invoke a method on A. The idea is the first input parameter. On the first input parameter, you are invoking a method. So we understand if this is a method, it's a method which is available from class 1. Okay, it's a method of class 1 where rest of the parameters are taken as parameters in the same order. So because it has 3 parameters, right, on the first parameter a method has been invoked, okay, which consumes rest of the parameters in the same order. Okay, if this is a case, then I have taken 3 parameters, whatever the number of parameters may be, right? It's like it has at least one parameter. Okay, the case we are looking at is your method has the lambda expression involves at least one parameter. On that parameter, you are invoking some method, right, which has parameter, which takes as parameters rest of all of them. Okay, except for the first one, whatever else is there. Okay, in that case, so if this is the case, this can be written as, so this is equivalent of saying class 1 colon colon method, where method is a method from class 1. Okay, I have said class 1, but understand it's any reference type on which a method can be invoked. Okay, and so this is the first case. A lambda expression was there. So this entire lambda expression, right, can be written as this thing. Right? For example, we have some place we have used a expression which looks like this. On an account, okay, we would like to call AC.display. Yeah, this has only one parameter, right? I'm invoking a method on that parameter. When I'm using the rest of the parameters, there's no other parameter. My method also is not taking any parameters here. And therefore, this is equivalent of saying account colon colon display. right? A lambda expression was there, right? So where you would have written a lambda expression which is using on the first input, invoking a method uses rest of the parameters in the same order. Okay, you may write it as class name colon method name. Rather than class name, I should say type name, whatever the type is. Okay, interfaces also have methods, default methods available there also, right? Yeah, fine. So this is the first case of method reference. Another case of method reference would be uh, when we have something like this. I think I'll pick up this. Okay, fine. I'll modify. So we'll consider always 3 inputs. Okay, fine. What we are doing here is this one. So we have 3 inputs, right? A, B, and C. And what we are doing is we have some other class, okay, or some other interface. It could even be an interface. Dot. We use a static method of that class. We are using a static method of that class, which is using as input all 3 of them, all the parameters keeping in the same order. If it's consuming all of them in the same order, okay, then this can also be written as some class colon static method. Oh, it's static method. I want to call it static method here. Okay, so method is name is some static method. Okay, fine. So you have a static method being invoked. So the lambda expression is, yes, it's taking some inputs, the input parameters, and the implementation is that, yes, I have a static method which I like to invoke, and I'll pass these parameters to that. That's the only thing I want to do in my lambda expression. Okay, fine. In that case, yes, we can write a method reference. So method reference will be using something like class name or type name colon method. And that's what we have seen in these 2 cases. And there's yet another kind of a method reference, okay, where, for example, you might have said, okay, so let's keep the same thing here, okay, fine, and let's change this part. Okay, now what we are doing here is there is some kind of an object available. Okay, so let me say wherever you're writing this, maybe from instance variable, from a local final variable, or find static variable, any such. So there is some object available to us. Okay, so this is of, okay, now let me call it some class. Okay, so there is some class and it has a some class so we have some object of this type. Okay, the object is of type some class. Okay, and some class has some method called some method. Okay, okay, fine. And you may have written a lambda expression which says, I want to invoke a method called some method, which uses these parameters. Right? In this case, you are invoking method on not any of the parameters, but on some object which is available to us. Right? And that is, on that object, we are invoking some method, and that is in turn using all the parameters as the input. Okay, this can then be written as, okay, so your object colon method. Okay, fine. For example, someone may have written, maybe that when we were doing that list, someone could have written something like this, right? So you had that account object. Okay, given an account, so I'm writing a consumer here. Okay, which is saying, given an account, let me use system.out.println account. Okay, if this is what your lambda expression was, it can be written as system.out. That's the object available to me, colon colon println. Okay, your lambda expression is simply calling a method on an object and using the parameters. Okay, fine, clear? Yeah, this is the object, right? Where I've said obj colon colon some method. So this is representing my object of system.out. So what is system.out? System is name of a class. Out is a static variable which has an object. On that object is of a type called print string. We have not yet seen that. Fine. And the method println is from that particular class. Okay. So on an object we are invoking a method println. Fine. So on some object we are invoking a method println and passing a fine. Fine. Whatever the input to me. So all inputs are to be used in a lambda expression. That's one thing. So if you have a lambda expression where all inputs are being used in the same order by some method invocation, okay, then we can have a method reference. Fine, clear. So this is method reference. Okay, a kind of case, it's known as a constructor reference. It's nothing but case of a method reference only. So within method reference, you can say there are certain things which we also call as constructor reference. Let's look at those cases. There are two such cases. Okay, so okay, mainly this will be more applicable to what we call as suppliers. Okay, you'll find more usage of the constructor reference. I'm coming to the constructor reference. Okay, so if I look at the constructor references, okay, I'll again consider a lambda expression which involves 3 inputs, let's say. Right? This just as an example I'm taking. Okay, so if this is what it is saying, okay, and what you are doing is you're saying, okay, I have some class, I have to return an object of some class. Okay, so I want to return an object, so I'll say new. I'm just calling a constructor here and using the inputs. Okay, when I'm using these as inputs. So I just want to return an object by using this. I'll create object of some particular class and return. Whatever are the inputs are used for creating an object. Okay, by using a constructor here. Then this can be written as new. The keyword new has been used here. Okay, that's a constructor reference. Okay, a simple example let me give. Someone says, I want a supplier. We understand supplier? Supplier of list of account. Okay, okay, so it is a list supplier. Let me just use a variable name like this, equal to, okay, how would you write this? You'll say, okay, new array list. Okay, something like this. Okay, this can be written as, so this entire thing, see there are no input parameters to this, right? Oh sorry, what have we done? Sorry. It's a supplier doesn't take any inputs, right? So this is the lambda, sorry. This is the lambda. Suppliers, no input, right? Return an object. The object should be of type list of account. Okay, so here new array list. Then creates a new array list. Supplier of list, right? So if someone calls the get method on list supplier, he'll get a object of the array list, empty object of array list. Okay, fine. So if this is to be written, how do we write this? That's it. Then these two are equivalent things. Oh, sorry. Yeah, left hand side I have not written here. Okay. Okay. The two statements are equal. So that's a lambda expression which could be written in that manner. Constructor reference. Okay. Recollect that int supplier, sorry, int function. Recollect the int function. What was the int function? Int function of account array. Then the two array method. When it was using this, right? Int function of account array, and okay, so that's a array creator equal to, and the lambda expression which we had written was, okay, given a size. Okay, so this is now another one. Fine, I think I've started the example before I took the syntax. Anyway, fine. So yeah, let's see. So what was this? How we had done this? It would say return new new account array of this size. Okay, so this is one more case, right? One case of constructor reference is where we call constructor of a class. Other case is where we create a array. Okay, so even if it's an array creation, right? Okay, fine. If it's an array creation, yes, you can use here. What do you think it should be? Account array : new, and that's a usage. Yeah, so these two are equivalent. So with an array : new, that's also possible. It's nothing but it's a function, right, which will take input as an int value and return the array. Size, we have to declare size. No. Where have we been declaring even in any other earlier method? When we use a method reference or a constructor reference, don't think about the parameter, how do I pass them? It knows. It knows that there will be an integer which will be coming, and that's what I have to create a size. You're not writing the syntax to create the array. You're only asking it, here is a function which will take input as an integer and will be allocating an array of that size and return it. Fine. Yeah. So if you are saying some array : new, it is understood. Fine. Okay. So lambda expression above, you mentioned the size. Yeah. In lambda expression we pass parameters. See, same thing here also. Where have we done this? Where have we said account is to be passed as a parameter here? Have we done that? We are writing only the object name colon colon method name. Leave it, because whatever is the input which is coming, oh fine, I'm using it. There's no input coming, and therefore okay, yeah, here the input is account, and therefore I'll be calling account on println. Whatever is the input that's coming, that's going to be passed as parameter. Okay. And so method reference, constructor reference, don't think about passing parameters to those methods or constructors. Just mention them, that's it. Clear about the method reference, constructor reference? Have a look at it again maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Started here. So I've considered example with, when talking about them, I've just considered 3 inputs. Okay. Fine. So 3 cases. One case, on the first input, a method. So a lambda expression which says, okay, on the first input, I will invoke a method which uses the rest of the parameters. Okay. So that first input is of a particular type. That type name, colon colon method name which you are invoking. It's understood that, yes. So it will try to match, it will see that, yes, whatever method is there, right, it's a method of this class only, and the first one is of that type only. In that case, yes, I have to invoke the method, whatever the other inputs will be there, I will be just passing them. Okay. Second was the static method, using all of them. Okay. Fine. Third case was an object on which we are invoking a method and using all the parameters. Right? Okay. Fine. And then we had the constructor reference. So constructor reference, this is the general syntax which I have mentioned, but most of the time it is the supplier which actually doesn't take any inputs. So calling constructor without parameters basically. Okay. Fine. So supplier is that option, right? Because supplier don't have parameters. Calling constructor without any parameters, creating an object. So this is my list supplier, okay, which I have said. Okay, so here it's simple, right? Instead of array list, I'll give another class which is implementing the list interface. Okay, so I want to use a list which is array list. I want to use the list which is a vector. I want to use a list which is a different one. Maybe it's a linked list class. There's a class called linked list also. Okay, so there are various classes implementing an interface like list, and yes, you can have a supplier of list. And like supplier of list, okay, it could be map or any other type. Okay. So this I should say, okay, what is the lambda expression here? It's a lambda expression of the form which says, right, so some size, okay, and some type. Okay, instead of type I should say some class name, okay, and size. Okay, so for this lambda expression, okay, you would have just said Okay. And so constructor reference, which involves an array. Okay. It's always going to be an int function, basically. It's equivalent of an int function. Okay. So most of the time for int function, you might like to do this.